Hey ladies, I'm super excited to have Dr. Carmen back with us. We have her for the whole month to talk about hormones and aging. And Dr. Carmen is a naturopathic physician. She's a licensed one. Let's clarify that. And she has a background in conventional medicine and then also went to medical school in a naturopathic medical school. So she has both perspectives. She's like a diamond in a rough, people. Like, we don't get to have someone that has both perspectives. So I'm very fortunate to know her and to have her as my business partner, and that she's willing to show up for you guys and talk. And like I said in my post earlier, like, I'm super excited to talk about this. We need to talk about menopause, and we need to talk about hormones and training, and that way we can have an empowered perspective as we approach these things, because we're all going to have to face it. As long as we are alive, we're going to have to face menopause. If you're not facing menopause, that means that you died before it. Like,
Yeah,
right? So
not something we get out of.
right. And I just think if we can know more, we can do different and prepare ourselves for that. So yeah, enlighten us, Dr. Carmen.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for that intro.
Yeah.
When you asked me to talk about menopause in athletes, I thought, that's a very interesting topic and so pertinent to a lot of folks. And where I feel like just asking the questions is kind of getting the ball rolling, right? In that direction. And so when we think about menopause in general, right? Let's just back up a little bit. Menopause is our change in hormones, right? Technically, the medical definition is when a woman has not had their period in over 12 months, over 1 year, when they're around, 40, 50 years old. It's different for everybody. We get into perimenopause when we start seeing menstrual changes. Our period might skip a month or 2 or 3 months. It might be heavy. It might come every other or on for a week and then like come back in 2 weeks. It's different for everybody. And it all depends on where our hormones are to begin with. So what changes overall in menopause, as we all know, is that our estrogen production drops off. Okay. So as our estrogen production drops off from, I should specify, from our ovaries, then it looks like our progesterone is a little bit higher, right? So we're left with a little bit higher progesterone. So that change in estrogen is what usually leads to a lot of the symptoms that we think about with menopause, the hot flashes, the night sweats, right? The weight gain or difficulty losing that belly fat, a little bit of fatigue, maybe some changes in sleep, even vaginal anxiety, depression, even some vaginal dryness, maybe even pain with intercourse. All of those things are common symptoms of menopause. That doesn't mean everybody has to experience them. It's just that they're common things that can occur depending on what someone's hormone levels are during that transition.
Which is like, sounds horrible and terrible. And as if we haven't had to deal with enough as women having a monthly period, I'm going to put a request in the universe that I come back as a man next time.
Yeah, it's a lot of changes. And I will tell you, some people go through menopause, no problems. They don't experience those symptoms, right? And usually those are folks that their hormones are in balance prior to menopause. So if people have sort of that estrogen dominant picture, that progesterone deficiency, it can make menopause more symptomatic, because if your body's used to a lot of estrogen and then it kind of drops out, then your body's like, oh, okay, it's like it's starving for something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So for those folks who've already gone through that transition, right, and we're trying to maintain or still build muscle in menopause or post-menopause, we have to tweak things a little bit to address it. We have less estrogen, right? So we can do that in a couple of different ways. So we, people probably experience this. We also see this in research that the less estrogen we have in our body, the more challenging it is to build muscle, right? To tone muscle. And so, I'm just making sure that I said that correctly. I think I did.
Yeah, the less estrogen, the harder it is.
Yes, because what happens is that in menopause, once the estrogen begins is produced less and less from the ovaries, what happens is that there can be this transition where our adipose tissue or our fat cells can produce estrogen. All right, this can actually happen in men and in women, but in women, if we have fat cells, they will try to compensate. Now, they cannot compensate to the point of the amount of estrogen your ovaries were producing, but they can still produce a significant amount. Okay. So what that means is that makes those adipose cells more active in producing hormones. So they're a little bit harder to burn. Okay.
Because the body doesn't want to release them anymore because they have a designated job that's being helpful.
Yeah, they're functioning now. They're not a storage space, right? Well, as before, they were fat is usually a storage space, right? It's a storage for fuel when our body needs it. That's why it stores it as fat. But when our hormones change and the center of where those hormones coming from changes, so it's no longer from the ovaries, then the fat cells will start, trying to contribute. So that's something that's kind of acting against us a little bit in that menopause state. But there are ways to overcome that. So we have to be very cognizant and very aware of what we're eating, the amounts of protein that we're offering and that we're giving our body to nourish, to promote that muscle strength, that muscle growth, quicker recovery, faster muscle repair. And as we are building muscle, we are burning fat. Okay. So there are things we can do to kind of manipulate that a little bit. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective to see like the overall picture of what's going on and why it can feel really hard when you're in menopause to where you may feel like you don't have enough stamina, right? You may feel like it is harder to make those gains, to maintain muscle tone, or build new muscle, right? Or stronger, muscle tone. And so I just want to, address that so that it's not all in your head. There are changes happening in your body. And I know when folks say, well, I've eaten healthy my whole life, right? All that's changed, I've worked out my whole life, all that's changed, or my adult life, all that's changed is my hormones, and it feels like my body's not working with me, right? Well, because of that change, we got to tweak things a little bit. Protein. Okay. We hear a lot about protein. So as we have lower amounts of estrogen, as we're working out, we're having lower amounts of estrogen and higher amounts of progesterone. That higher amounts of progesterone also makes it a little bit harder to build muscle. It's not that it's harder, like it can't happen. It's just our body's not as efficient, right? It's not as streamlined to repair those muscles and increase their strength. So
what I've read is that progesterone kind of like gets in the way of protein synthesis.
Yes, it makes it where our protein is not as accessible for our body to use, right? So I tell folks when we're looking from a naturopathic perspective, I'm always trying to figure out, okay, why isn't your body in that healing and repairing state, right? Are there deficiencies present? And this would be a situation where deficiency would be present because the increase of that progesterone due to the lack of estrogen, causes your body to not be able to efficiently metabolize that protein and turn it into muscle, right? Or to support that muscle repair, right? To strengthen our muscles. So so when we say protein, I'm going to get a little bit specific because not all amino acids are created the same. So amino acids are those building blocks to protein. Okay. So if we think of amino acids, they're the smallest form of protein. And then when we put them together, we make muscle, right? So when our body has plenty of the ingredients available, when it goes in that repairing process, it is much more efficient, right? I tell folks, you're making, I don't know, say you're trying to cook something in the kitchen. You're trying to make an entree or a main meal, right? Say it's, I don't know. I can't even think of anything. Enchiladas. Well, if you think of enchiladas, well, what if you didn't have any tortillas?
Right.
Well, how are your enchiladas going to turn out? Right. So you need to make sure you have all those ingredients readily available. Okay. So when we're talking about proteins, you find different types of proteins in plants than you do in animal proteins. Right. A lot of the research points to leucine as a very important amino acid to support the production or the strengthening and the repair of muscles. Okay. We also see how leucine can overcome that progesterone change, right? And so that is one that you want to make sure that you're adding into your diet. Okay. Now, the proteins, like the complete proteins, the branch chain proteins, you're going to see more often in animal products, right? So whey protein is usually very common. We find whey protein in most all conventional grocery stores these days or nutrition centers. There are other types of protein like pea protein and rice protein and hemp protein or soy protein. The bioavailability of leucine and those branched chain amino acids are going to be higher concentrations in the whey protein. Okay. Now, this is my side note because I am very picky about proteins, but I'm picky about like this goes in the realm of sort of supplements, right? I want people to look for good quality ones. So when you're looking for a good whey protein, you want it to say a whey isolate, right? So there are a lot of things that'll just say whey protein. Since these things are not regulated, anybody can put whey protein on their label and you don't actually really know what's in it. But if it says whey isolate, you're less likely to have the allergenic components and proteins of the whey that can cause issues with people's gut. Okay. So you also want you don't want, well, okay. If you choose a soy protein, okay, it's going to take twice as much grams of protein in a soy product to get the amount or to get the bioavailable amount of leucine that you need. Okay. So say you get a product, it says whey isolate on it, and it says, oh, there's 25 grams of protein in it per scoop. Okay. Then you get another product and it's a soy product. In order to get the same amount of protein, that 25 grams, you're going to have to take 50 grams of that soy protein to match the bioavailability in the whey. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I just want people to be aware of that because now you're comparing apples and oranges, right? They're not quite the same. So keep that in mind as well. Okay. So a lot of folks are probably familiar with the pre and post workout proteins, right, or drinks that are usually high in protein.
Yeah.
What we see with folks in menopause, with women in menopause, is that you want to cater your pre-workout protein to be either 15 grams of whey isolate or 9 grams of a branched chain amino acid combination.
You do, like, because they sell like BCAAs separate.
Yes.
Is that like a little bit more efficient or better for the body is to do BCAAs pre-workout and then a whey isolate post-workout?
Yes. So that's more, it's more, okay. So you're offering your body, when we're talking about those ingredients, right? You're offering your body a more diverse bioavailability ingredients if you do that. Not everybody wants to do a BCAA and whey.
We're CrossFitters. We're like,
Yeah.
we're in it.
Okay.
We have 3 different pairs of tennis shoes for workout to see which one. Is it a lifter, or is this a running, or is this a Metcon like shoe? Which shoe do I need to pick right now? So we're fine.
Okay. All right. Then our goal is that 9 grams of the BCAAs, the branched chain amino acids. Okay.
Pre-workout.
Pre-workout. So yeah, 20 to 30 minutes before workout. So you'll notice if it's the whey isolate, you don't need as many as the branched chain amino acids, right? You only need 9 grams versus 15 for the whey.
Because I don't ever drink a protein shake before. Like a lot of people will drink like pre-workout that has like a stimulator in it, right? Like a vasodilator and stuff. Like the nutrition guy at my gym is like 2 hours before, eat a healthy carb and eat a protein, like maybe a protein shake or something before that.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, like you could do that, or you could just do like a healthy carb and just BCAAs.
Yes. Closer to the workout though. I wouldn't do it 2 hours. I would try to do, like half an hour before workout.
BCAAs.
Yes. Yeah.
And then a protein shake post-workout.
Yeah. Post, you need to aim for that 25 milligrams of whey, that 25 milligrams of protein, in a whey form. You go up to 30, but the research shows us the most efficient is 25. So yeah. Now let's see, to address the amount of protein that you need. So there are different schools of thought, right? Yeah, there are different schools of thought. So if you are building muscle, you're always going to weigh on the side of more protein, right? Because you need those ingredients. So I don't know that I can entirely speak to the different schools of thought because coming from a naturopathic and sort of a nutrition background, but not necessarily an athletic nutrition background, it's different, right? Like their goals are a little bit different. So I don't know that I can speak to that, but the quality of protein is what I'm speaking to in terms of the whey isolate or the branched chain amino acids versus something like a soy protein, or even the pea proteins and the hemp proteins. You can still get a decent amount of protein, but I wouldn't use that post-workout because doesn't have high amounts of leucine in it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you still have to read the labels.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And okay, so do you have any questions about that?
No, not so far.
Okay, so as far as, let's see, manipulating, so our diet, not necessarily around workouts, but just in general, what can we do to support the hormone production, right? So even if our ovaries are not producing as much estrogen, they can still produce some, right? They don't completely just die off. And so making the deficiency or making that system efficient and also addressing our stress response and our adrenals at the same time. We can manipulate our carbs and proteins throughout the day to support that process as well. So in general, usually we want to aim for more carbs in the morning or the first part of the day, because that helps to create those, or it helps increase the ingredients available to make those hormones, the cortisol for the stress response, but also our estrogen and our testosterone and our progesterone, right? So our body, even though we may not have a monthly cycle, our body still functions within a 24-hour cyclic period, right? So we want to do so, a little bit more carb heavy in the more earlier during the day, and then you want to increase your protein of an afternoon, right? Because the protein helps to support the production of the enzymes that help to break down those hormones so that your body can recycle them for the next day. It also helps provide the enzymes to help with sleep, to produce our melatonin. It helps with the enzymes to help to decrease sort of that that wired but tired feeling, that excess cortisol that may be around of an evening. So now, I mean, everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? So if people have a tendency to like work out in the morning and they're a morning CrossFitter and they've got those early morning workouts, you can kind of manipulate your diet a little bit, right? So whether people eat breakfast or not, but you might add like an extra, a little bit more carbs to your pre-workout drink, then work out, then get your 25 grams of whey in post-workout, then say, you know, mid-morning snack or lunch-ish. That's where I put more of my, carbs, my starchy vegetables, that sort of thing. And then of the evening, making that, a lean proteins of an evening, or plant proteins. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to, share that, because that little manipulation of when our body's processing our carbs and when our body's processing our protein, creates an environment that's a little bit more efficient for the production and the metabolism, or the breakdown of all the players that we're talking about here, for our hormones, for stress, for muscle strengthening, right, for those gains.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. I want to also bring up a couple of other things around menopause, and for the menopause or postmenopausal athlete. So hot flashes are always an issue. I think this is what scares women about, well, it's probably one of the things, that kind of scares women about menopause, is because it's one of those things, like if you've experienced a hot flash, it's like it just comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it's burning up, and it, it's not comfortable,
right,
by any means. So that happens because as our estrogen decreases, okay, as our estrogen decreases, our blood vessels have a tendency to be more reactionary or reactive. Okay. So they will dilate, they will come closer to the surface. And so when that happens, it increases blood flow, and that increases that heating sensation. Right. So the same thing when people who experience hot flashes, when they work out, it can increase those hot flashes. And part of that is because working out is a physical stressor. So that also drops our cortisol. So it decreases that threshold, so that you're more likely to have a hot flash or hot sensation. Okay. The other thing is that sometimes it may not feel like a hot flash, but for women who are in menopause, it may feel like it takes a lot longer to cool off, right? So when you've gone to work out, you're like hot, you're sweating, and you're standing in front of the fan trying to cool off, and you're red, and everybody's like, "Ooh, okay." They may have recovered a lot quicker, and you feel like you're still on fire by the time you get in your car and try to go home. Yeah. So,
That's so terrible.
so we have to address that.
Yeah.
So what's happening, right, is you're already increasing blood flow with working out, right, and with exercising. And so if your blood vessels are already dilated, they're already closer to the surface, it's going to take a little bit longer than the average, than the non-menopausal female to reduce or to constrict those blood vessels and help the blood flow kind of return back to the core versus on our skin, right?
Could you hypothetically then, like, because we have a shower at Coda,
Yes.
you just go take a cold shower afterwards then to help that vasoconstriction?
Yes. Yeah. You stimulate vasoconstriction. Yes. Hot, cold towels, ice water, cold shower is perfect. That's the easiest, quickest way to stimulate that vasoconstriction. So I mean, it's obvious. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go stand under cold water. I'm gonna cool off faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, for folks to help to trigger that vasoconstriction and to reduce that symptom, it's going to be cold. Yeah. Cold water, cold towels. A fan's not going to, a fan will do it eventually. But if you want to reduce that symptom quickly, it's going to be
Well,
cool
I've heard
water.
too, like for people that don't have access to a shower or don't want to, like if you cool the wrist down, it cools the body down faster. So running the wrist under cold water, is that accurate?
Yes, you can. So sometimes like areas where you can see blood vessels closer to the surface, right? So usually wrists, it's usually like necks. Yeah. That by running those under cooler water, you can create this domino effect of this vasoconstriction around the whole body. Yeah.
So if you're a CrossFit gym owner, you should have cold, wet towels in the refrigerator or freezer for your older female athletes. It would be a very nice courtesy.
Yes, they would appreciate it greatly, I believe. Yeah. Perfect. And then I had one more kind of fun side note I wanted to share with your community. So sometimes when we are in menopause, that progesterone's a little bit higher. Sometimes that can create trouble with our sleep, right? Sometimes people, it may be insomnia, but maybe it's just like they're having trouble falling asleep, right? Or trouble staying asleep. That's not associated with stress. That's a whole nother ball game. But that progesterone can interact with how we sleep, how our body produces that melatonin. So what can be helpful is to take like 20-30 minutes before bed 4 ounces of cold tart cherry juice.
Okay.
4
ounces, a fourth of a cup, right? No, half
a cup.
Half a cup. Okay.
8 ounces is a cup. Yeah, so it'll be half a cup of cold tart cherry juice. So if it's cold, right, it's going to lower that core temperature, so it helps you get ready for bed. It is also going to increase our production of melatonin, so that will override the progesterone because we want that melatonin at bedtime. But it also tart cherry juice can be really helpful for joint health and inflammation.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, if people have things like maybe a little bit arthritis or kind of feel like sometimes your joints are a little bit stiff, or even if people have a tendency towards gout, which can happen if you eat too much protein and people don't tolerate it well. So you kind of have to find that balance for you. But that tart cherry juice can be really helpful and a nice easy thing to add into your routine to help with sleep, to address the joint health, the muscle health, right, to promote that melatonin, and to reduce the night sweats or the hot flashes at night.
It's on my list. We should have done this back when I was like in my 20s. Now at 40, and I'm like staring down the barrel of this stuff. I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and get that ship and head out to sea and never come back. Like, this sounds depressing.
Oh no. Yeah. What I always tell folks is to take it into consideration. So even though we've heard all these things, right, about menopause and sort of change and the transition, it's still individual. It's still different for everybody, right? So if we can balance out hormones and perimenopause, they're less likely to see the intense symptoms when it comes around to your body decreasing that production of estrogen. But
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else for our amazing women athletes that have gone through through menopause and still choose to show up in the world?
I think that is kind of the big things that I wanted to touch base on to try and give folks some pointers. Unless you have any other questions.
No, because we're gonna do a whole webinar on recovery, so we'll just touch on all of that recovery in that one. We're gonna touch next week on age and how age affects our performance and the myths around that.
Yes.
Anything else? I don't think so.
Okay.
Fun. So there is hope, ladies. Like, it's just, I want to, like, because me and you talked about this earlier, Dr. Carmen and I talked about this earlier. It's not like this bleak picture of like, okay, you're just going to gain fat. It's be harder to lose muscle, or it's going to be harder to gain muscle, harder to lose fat. Like, that sounds for us as CrossFitters like a death sentence. But really what it is, it's a reduction of efficiency. A reduction of efficiency to lose weight, a reduction of efficiency to build muscle. It's not a complete, you can't build muscle, you can't lose weight. It's just, if you were at 99% in your 20s, and I'm just making up numbers here.
Yeah.
Now in premenopause, menopause, you're maybe down to like 95%. Is that a fair number?
Yes.
Because in my brain, like right now, it's like I go from 99 to like 20%. I'm just working at 20%.
No. So you can still be in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah.
But that change in efficiency and how our body builds muscle tones and strengthens, we can manipulate that, right? So that's what we're suggesting. We're manipulating that with the timing and the amount of protein within your diet, so that you can still get in the 90s, right, that efficiency. It's just you have to acknowledge that your body's changed, right? Overall, how your body produces things has changed. And so whatever worked in your 20s may not work now. You just have to tweak it a little bit, but there's no reason why you can't get back up to that similar efficiency as before when you're providing your body with the right ingredients.
Yeah. We just got to be more intentional.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Cool. And I love that we're going to talk about it's myths next week, the myths of aging. Like how we think that like these 20-year-olds, like we can't keep up with them. It's harder to keep up with them. And really that is due to stress is why we can't, because as adults, the older we get, I feel like the more stressed we get, right? And it's a stress thing, not necessarily an age thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm excited to explore that a little bit more and share. With that, with that topic.
Yeah. All right, friends. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to shoot us any comments or questions. you guys will be getting this as a replay. So you'll have asked for it and I've emailed it to you. So you can just hit reply and then I will get the questions to Dr. Carmen or respond what I can. So thank you guys. Thank you, Dr. Carmen.
Perfect. You're welcome. Thank you.